Welcome to Trophy Room, Nebraska. On today's episode, we are going to go over the Michigan State versus Nebraska game right before we head down to Lincoln. So, first off, we're going to talk about Michigan State. We want to know a little bit more about what they are, how they play, their strengths, their weaknesses, all of that. So, first off, Michigan State, we're going to go over some regular stats that we have here. When I say regular, I'm talking like FPI, rankings, yards per game, all that kind of stuff. So right now, Michigan State is ranked 63rd in FPI with a 1.9 metric on that. They're also 56th in CBS Sports Rankings, and their current point differential is 5.5. So on average, they score 5.5 more points than their opponent every game. Not the largest point differential, but they're 3-1, so it makes sense. Offense, 374 yards per game. That is 80th in the country. Not too bad. Kind of more a little past the middle of the pack. So they aren't the most explosive offensive team, but there they are. 154 yards rushing. They're 72nd in the league, and then 220.3 yards passing, which is 76th in the league. College football. Now for the Big Ten, they score 34.3 points per game, and that is actually 11th in the Big Ten. So when we're looking at the Big Ten, they're a little bit lower than average. So the offense is good. It's serviceable, but it's nothing to write home about, which for us, I think spells something good, but we will keep chugging through the stats here. Let's talk about their defense a little bit. So defense, they have a 384 yards allowed per game, so they actually give up more yards than they actually make on offense, which is interesting. They are 91st in yards allowed per game, so a little bit worse than they are on offense. 120.5 yards allowed rushing, they're at 48th, and then 263.5 yards allowed passing, which is 115th in the country. So their pass defense is not very good, which I feel for us spells a successful day. Now I'll get into my score prediction later and how I think the game is going to go, but they don't defend the pass very well. They defend the rush decently, so maybe not the best thing for us, but pass defense is not their forte. And in the Big Ten, they allow 28.8 points per game, which actually puts them 16th in the Big Ten. So not a very good spot. Their defense is not very good, especially to Big Ten standards. They are third worst. There's only two teams below them, 17 and 18, and they're at 16. So their defense is not very strong. Now, of course, we'll kind of talk about some games that they played recently too. Their current record this year. So their schedule and record, they're at 3-1 for this year so far. So not a bad record. That's actually the same record we have, so I can't hate on it too much. But their opponents have been a little bit different than we have faced and how they have beaten them. So, first off, win versus Western Michigan. That was the first game they had. They beat them 23-6. Western Michigan, not the best team in the country by any means at all. But they beat them all right, 23-6. That's not too bad. Clearly their offense didn't get going. Defense played decent. But their next game was against Boston College. They won 42-40 in double overtime. Of course, we played Boston College in our bowl game. We beat them a little bit better than that. Now, of course, that was when they had guys that didn't play because they wanted to go to the draft. And I get it. I understand it. But you would think Boston College has gotten a little bit better since that bowl game, just like we have gotten a little bit better since that bowl game, if not a lot better. And we have to just kind of take that one and say, okay, that one's a little bit interesting. Next, they played Youngstown State, and they won 41-24. That is not what... that's a good thing for us, I'll say. Now, if we were to play Youngstown State, I would not be happy with that score. To give 24 points up to Youngstown State is not a good thing. Even if they are FCS level, we don't want that to happen. But it was Michigan State, so I don't really care, and I'll take it as a good sign. And then they lost to USC 45-31. I actually did not watch that game. A few things that I've heard was that the score looks a little closer than it actually was. It was a 14-point win by USC, but USC was definitely the better team. So yeah, they haven't done too great. They've done what they're supposed to do, which is good. That's good for them. But they haven't made any statement wins or anything like that, except maybe the one with Boston College, but it really depends on how they do through the year. I haven't looked too much into Boston College. Outside of their record, let's talk some key players. So what we're going to do, we have a couple key players on offense, a couple key players on defense, and we're going to hit offense first and then go to defense. So, of course, this is going to be the biggest thing. Their quarterback, Aiden Childs, he is the key impact player for this game for them on the offensive side. His ability to scramble is going to be what could destroy us. If we don't stop him, that's going to be the biggest piece. With our pass defense, I feel like he's not going to have that many things open. He's going to have to run around a little bit, see what he can do with his rushing yards, with his legs, and kind of go from there. So just some stats with him. He is 70 for 102. So 68.6% passing completion. Not really bad at all. I would say anything like 65 and up is pretty decent. For 868 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 1 interception. So he only has 1 pick, which is good. I honestly, before the season, just kind of thinking through the quarterbacks in the Big Ten, I know that he was ranked at a decent level for the Big Ten quarterbacks. And I was like, that doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's starting to make a lot more sense as time goes on, considering he's only thrown 1 pick. So that's part of that there. And then in rushing, 39 rushing attempts for 154 yards, 3.9 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns. So he's a runner. He's doing good there. That's what we have to worry about, especially scrambling. Design runs, I'm not as worried about those because either way it's a run play. The things that I'm worried about is when people are going deep, he's waiting for an opportunity to throw it, and then he books it, and he takes it off. That's what I would be more concerned about. Their running backs, they have 2 of them that they primarily work with, Mekhi Frazier and Brandon Tulis. Mekhi Frazier, he's their number 1 back. He's pretty good. His rushing yards are 267 on 57 attempts. So he almost averages 5 yards per carry, and then he has 2 touchdowns as well. Their other running back, Brandon Tulis, 128 yards for 25 attempts, 5.1 yards per rush, and 2 touchdowns. So the thing that I envy about Michigan State right now is they seem to have their running back situation figured out. We don't. We'll talk about that a little more later, but we got to. I would like to have a running back situation that Michigan State has. Maybe not their exact running backs, but they have their 1 figured out and they have their 2 figured out and they move forward with it. And then 2 wide receivers, Omar Kelly and Nick Marsh. Those have been the 2 that have been most talked about. Nick Marsh specifically, I hear a lot more talk about him other than Omar Kelly. But Nick Marsh, 18 receptions, 222 yards, 12.3 yards per catch, and he has 3 touchdowns. So he has the most touchdowns on the team, besides, of course, the quarterback. But most touchdown receptions on the team. And then Omari Kelly is another one to look at. He has 21 receptions for 317 yards, 15.1 yards per catch, and 1 touchdown. We're going to jump to tight end because I feel like they use their tight end a good amount. And that's going to be its position that we need to watch, especially with the quarterback making quicker decisions. And if he's going to have to scramble, tight end is going to be a big role that, as a pass catcher, he can dump off to if his first, second, and third options of receiver aren't open. Boom, there's a tight end and, short routes, things like that. So Michael Masunis, he has 7 receptions for 94 yards, 13.4 yards per catch, and he has 2 touchdowns on the year. So they're spreading the ball pretty evenly around when it comes to running, passing. They're doing a pretty good job of doing that. They're pretty even when it comes to rushing and passing. Like I said, 154 yards rushing, 220.3 yards passing. So Let's go on to the next thing here. Defensive key players for Michigan State. So for Michigan State, I picked out three guys that we should keep an eye on. First, Jordan Hall. He, from what I've looked at, he appears to be their best defensive player in the room, like the whole defense. And he's really just like an all-around good linebacker. He can tackle. He can, guard the pass a little bit. He can get sacks. He's forced fumbles. He's in that all-around category, so that's a guy to watch out for. Joshua Eaton is the next one. Now, not necessarily for direct performance. He has the potential that he could pop at any time, really. Joshua Eaton, who's a DB, he came from Texas State. He's a transfer from there, and he really does have a potential to make a larger impact on the game if the DBs and their pass defense are playing better than they have been. Hopes they don't play better than they have been. I hope that they play just about the same or worse to help us with getting the ball thrown around and getting some yards, because we are basically a pass-first offense at this point. But he's the guy to watch. He might make some moves. Their DB room isn't too strong, though. One guy on the line, Jalen Thompson, he's the edge player. When I was doing some research online, there wasn't too much about their defense, but he was one that popped up that it was like, this is a guy to watch from looking at their websites and things like that for Michigan State. And the thing that I thought was kind of interesting, so he's an edge player, but he has not had a sack in 2 years, but he's a huge player in the run game. So he's like that run defense edge player that you put in there. Some guys are a little bit better in the pass. Some guys are a little bit better in the run. He seems to be a lot better in the run, so they keep him in there for those types of things. But it's just a guy to keep an eye on. And I know they do have also a defensive lineman that's more in the interior to watch out for. I forget his name, but if I were to do a fourth impact player, that would be who it is. Well, enough about Michigan State. Let's talk about what we're here for, Nebraska. So, overall, in FPI, we are 21st in the nation at 14.1 metric. So we are a lot higher than Michigan State when it comes to FPI, which is a great sign. And then we are also 30th in the CBS Sports rankings, which is also a good chunk higher than Michigan State. Point differential. This is where we get a little bit of help from the Akron game and then also the Houston Christian game. But our point differential is at plus 30 versus Michigan State 5.5. So we are outscoring our opponents by a wide margin. Now, I'm talking about the Houston Christian and Akron game with point differential. They also played Western Michigan, and then they also played Youngstown State, where they probably should have put up more points to increase their point differential. So I'm not going to say it's a non-factor, but it does show you a little bit that we are a high-powered offense. We score, we do everything that we're trying to do in most capacities. Now, our offensive stats. We have 496.6 yards per game, which is actually 13th in the nation. I didn't realize we were that high up in our yards per game, and that actually kind of makes me happy. Now, when you dig into the details a little bit, this is something we all see when we're watching the games, but 144.8 yards rushing, which is 86th. And then pass is 351.8 yards passing, and it's second in the entire country. Yes, the entire country. We are the second best passing team, at least when it comes down to yards. So that's very interesting. I didn't really think, even with Dana Holgerson, that we would be that high. I thought we would be a little bit more even. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. I'm honestly surprised we do have 144.8 yards rushing per game. I'm kind of surprised by that. I think the Akron game and the Houston Christian game probably helped out a lot in those numbers. Because Cincinnati, we did well, but not very good. And then Michigan, we couldn't run the ball to save our life. So those were very surprising for me. Well, not very surprising. They were surprising, but It was like, oh, okay. Turned my head a little bit. We score 43.5 points per game, which is 4th in the Big Ten. So Michigan State is further down that road. They are not in the top half. We are at the top of the top half. We're in the top 4, which is a very good sign. We should be in the top 4 of the Big Ten. That's where we want to be. Defense. We allow 249.3 yards per game, which is 14th in the nation. That's great. So our defense is still doing well, all things considered, when it comes down to yards per game. Again, Houston Christian and Akron help a lot with that. So this will even out as we go and be more of a true statistic. But I think we all know where this is going to go. 173.5 yards allowed rushing per game. 108th in the nation. Not a good number. That needs to go down. We need to stop the run. Pass yards. 75.8 allowed per game. We are the number 1 pass defense in the entire country if you just look at it based on stats. I love to see it. I love to see us at that spot for pass defense. It's great, but it only helps us so much when our run defense isn't doing anything. Now, it does help us when we are ahead in the game, because usually when we're ahead, teams are trying to pass the ball to get up or to get, in contention for the game. So that is a good sign. It's just now if that happens for Michigan State, we really have to keep an eye on Aiden Childs, because if we don't, he will break us up with his legs, just like the Cincinnati quarterback did. We'll talk about the last few games that we've had. So, of course, we beat Cincinnati 20-17, beat Akron 68-0, beat Houston Christian 59-7, and then we lost to Michigan 2 weeks ago, 30-27. So, both 3-1. We're 3-1. They're 3-1, and that's exactly. I can't say exactly. That is it makes for a good matchup. This is a true test for us. I'm going to talk about our offensive key players. We all know what number 1 is. Dylan Raiola. He's our number 1 player. If he's not playing well, we're doomed because we can't run the ball. He's basically the key to our success at all times. He's playing like a top quarterback, and his only pick was not the best throw, but I kind of give it like 50-50 responsibility between him and Luke Lindenmeyer. So he does have 1 interception, 75.6% for passing, and then he also has 1,137 yards and 11 touchdowns. So he's looking really good stats-wise. He did battle against Michigan, and I feel like he still looked good. Even a lot of the chatter that was going around was he's holding the ball too long. He needs to pass the ball. He needs to do this. He needs to do that. And there's a sliver of truth to that. It's some plays he was holding it too long. Sometimes the offensive line looked like the Bengals, where 3 guys blocked 1 guy, and then the other 3 just, beat their guy super easy. Just like that. You can't keep holding the ball if you're going to get hit. But there's also a sliver to that. Means there's a sliver to the offensive line. I feel like there's also a sliver to the play calling. If we want Dylan to throw the ball faster, you got to call faster passes. RPOs, slants, out routes, things like that are a lot quicker. Instead of, okay, let me sit here, let things develop. Okay, now I'm going to throw it. Of course, it depends the defense you're facing. If they're not getting to you, do that all day long. I don't care. He can sit back there for 10 seconds if he wants to. I don't mind. But when they're coming after you, which hopefully won't happen versus this game with Michigan State, you got to get rid of the ball, and that's on part of the coach, Dana, to call the right plays. That's on Dylan to see the right receivers, and that's on the offensive line to block. It's a 3-pronged issue. It's not all on Dylan. Next, Emmett Johnson. He is our number 2 that I would say key player. 71 rushing attempts for 391 yards, 5.5 yards per attempt, and 4 touchdowns. Pretty good overall. Also, he does have some stats in the passing game. So he has 16 receptions for 73 yards, 4.6 yards per reception and then 1 touchdown. Emmett's not the type of running back that usually you'll send on a long passing route. It'll be more of a shorter route, like a flat over to the side, I think that's what we call it. And then like a Texas route where he goes like that, or like a curl. That's usually where you see Emmett when I've watched him play. He's a good dump option where it's like, oh crap, nothing's here, give it to Emmett, because he's going to make people miss to the best of his ability. I'm a huge Chargers fan. I know I talked about that earlier. Not talking about Chargers, but he kind of gives me LaDainian Tomlinson vibes. He's not as good as LaDainian Tomlinson. I'm not saying that. But, you know, LaDainian Tomlinson was a great running back that could also catch the ball. Was he amazing at catching the ball? No, but he was kind of more of an all-around back, and could do a little bit of everything. He was a little bit more, wasn't super power. He had a little bit more shiftiness to him, but he could run people over if he needed to. That's kind of where Emmett is. We just need him to be versatile. So keep being versatile, because if the run game's not going to be there, he's going to have to start catching the ball more. With short routes, if the DBs on the other team are blocking out our receivers and our tight ends. I'll come back to this other player I have later for a key player, but we're going to talk about Ja'Cory Barney. He is the wide receiver, or really just player in general, because I don't want to limit him to just wide receiver. That is the next key player. So right now, Ja'Cory Barney has 21 receptions for 301 yards. Doesn't have a touchdown. Actually, he does. Duh. I forgot to write that down here. He caught the Hail Mary pass. And then 14.3 yards per reception. Now, the bigger piece that I want to talk about, 9 punt return yards for 111 yards, 12.3 yards per return, and his longest return is 39 yards. Not only is he a go-to receiver, but he is a good punt returner, but can he be great? That's what we need to watch out for. He talked early in the season that he wants to be the best returner in the country, and he wants us to have the best punt return team. We need to see that. He's done well. We've seen a lot worse in recent years, but he needs to do a little bit more to get a punt return for a touchdown. Next one, Elijah Pritchett, offensive tackle. I could have picked anyone else on the offensive line, because we need someone to be a key impact player there, but in my opinion, it has to be a tackle spot. I feel like they're going to put Elijah Pritchett in at either of the tackle spots this game. I know that he's had issues with false starts. And this has been a common, message with media and YouTube. But he's going to have to figure that out, and we're just going to have to put him in. From what I heard, the few times that he was in, I think last game against Michigan, he blocked decently well. It's just then he had a false start, and then it was, all right, you're out. Which, yes, I understand. But you're paying this guy however much money, he's going to have to figure out those issues. In my opinion, the only way to really figure those issues out is doing it in-game. At least, I can't say only way. The biggest way to figure it out is in-game. Get more tape, get more of an understanding of what's going on when this is happening, instead of it happened once and he's gone. He's out. We need to see what he can do. And if he gets a false start and it's a first down, okay, cool. It's fine. I know Dylan can get another 5 yards. It's not the biggest deal. It's not like we're run, pass, run, pass. We are pass, run, pass, run. Like, we are so diverse when it comes to our play calling, is I don't feel like it'll have as big of an issue. Unless we're down, then that's a problem. But if we're up, let him in, let him figure out his issues, go from there. And then Luke Lindenmeyer, that will be my number 6 offensive key player. We're missing one, and I'll come back to that later. But 16 receptions for 160 yards, 10 yards per reception, 1 touchdown. He's steady. He's a good tight end. I really couldn't ask anything different of him, except that interception. But I put that as a 50-50 responsibility between him and Dylan. But, just keep being steady. That's all that I ask of Luke. Defensive key players. Got 3 of them here. Deshaun Singleton. He is my first defensive key player. For him, 17 total tackles, and he has 1 fumble recovered. I kind of label him as like the spear of the defense. He's going to be a guy that will pass rush. He'll also cover a little bit. And then he's also going to look to get some huge hits when they're running the ball. Or when a guy catches the ball, he's going to try to knock him out, which is fun. It's a fun watch. But I want to see how he does in our pass coverage. Reason being, I think Malcolm Hartzog is still going to be out. I know that Rex Guthrie is kind of taking more of that role at that safety position, but he's technically kind of a safety too with being a nickel. It's just like that hybrid safety linebacker role. And I just want to see him make a cool coverage play. I don't know. Let's get him into the conversation for one of the best nickels in the Big Ten. Linebacker, there's a few good picks here. I went with Dasan McCullough though. He has 9 total tackles, 2 sacks. He's more classified as like a jack linebacker instead of a Mike or Will or Sam. Inside or outside. He's more of that jack who kind of plays traditional linebacker, but then will also shift a little bit more to like that edge position and be a little bit more of a pass rusher, which is where those 2 sacks come from. But he is really important in our scheme for defense because we got to get to the quarterback. And if our defensive line isn't doing it with 4-man down, we need a linebacker to help. And he's that guy, at least so far. So that's why he's my pick. We need to get to the quarterback. We need to stop him before he's able to get out of the pocket and do some magic things. Lastly, but not least, Williams Nwaneri. He has 10 total tackles, 2 fumbles recovered, 1 for a touchdown. So he is playing pretty decent, but he's going to be key in getting to the quarterback, just kind of like I talked about with Dasan. We really need Nwaneri to start to solidify himself. Again, I could have picked multiple players here. It'd probably be Williams or Keona, but we really need our defensive line to step up. So, actually, I'm going to go back to the last offensive key player real quick. Quentin Ives. So this was going to be like my 4th key to the game, so that's why I'm doing it now. It's like an honorable mention key. So my honorable mention key to the game before we get into the 3 keys is Quentin Ives. We need to establish a running back 2. I feel like it's him. He's been here long enough. He's gotten developed. He's a little bit more of that bigger power-ish back. I'm not saying he's just a battering ram that isn't going to run long runs, but kind of like more like that Dante Dowdell style that we had last year. That's more Quentin Ives. And Quentin has to get in there. I know we have the other running backs. Mosey's more of a wide receiver now, and then Mekhi Nelson, but I think it's got to be Quentin. We just need to see him do something. That's where I'm at. And surprisingly, too, he's played more than I thought he has. Right now, he has 16 rushing attempts for 119 yards, 7.4 yards per attempt and 2 touchdowns, as well as 3 receptions for 43 yards, 14.3 yards per reception. So I feel like he probably played more during Akron and Houston Christian. I didn't have my eye on a lot of like the second group players and remembering like, oh, who got this run and who got this run there and who got this pass, who got this sack. But I'm assuming that's where most of the yards came from because he didn't really play in Cincinnati. I don't think he played in Michigan at all. So there's only 2 games left. Let's go to our 3 keys. So key number 1, balance the offense. We need to have a more balanced offense. I don't want to see us continue to go through the year where we're throwing almost 400 yards passing in a game and then we have like 100 yards rushing. Let's balance that out a little bit. Sometimes there's going to be more passing in a game than there is going to be rushing. Sometimes there will probably be more rushing in a game than there's going to be passing. That is okay. It's not the biggest deal. But I don't want to see another game like Michigan where it's like, well, we can't run the ball. Just pass. Keep passing and passing and passing and passing and passing. I don't want to see that. Key number 2, stop the quarterback run. We got to stop Aiden Childs from running. We need to stop it. Mostly scrambling. I also put quarterback in parentheses, as you can see on the board. So stop the run in general because they have those two running backs that are solid. And then they also have a running quarterback who is more than happy to scramble. We need to make sure that we're stopping it. I'm not saying put a quarterback spy on him. I think I talked about that during the Michigan game preview. We don't need a spy. What we really need to do is just have our scheme work. I know that Matt Rule talked about, and I think a couple of the players talked about how run defense is more of an attitude, not necessarily a scheme. Like it's a scheme, but the attitude is what separates decent run defenses or bad run defenses from good to great run defenses. We need to see that. We need to see it happen, or else this year is not going to go the way that we want it to, especially when we're playing a team like Maryland next, who is looking really, really good. The Big Ten is one of the hardest leagues, this and the SEC, so we just have to get it figured out ASAP. Key number 3, resiliency in special teams. So we really need to remain consistent in special teams. I'm happy that I'm talking about this in this way. Talking about resiliency, not we need to get better. Why are we doing this? Why is this happening? Why is that happening? But where this conversation really starts is Kyle Cunanan, place kicker. You know, he kicks the field goals great. He does a really good job of that. I know he missed one versus Michigan. You're going to miss him every once in a while. Wasn't the worst thing to miss. But he's also doing kickoffs. And that's where I have like questions on, you know, go back to Akron and Houston Christian. We're scoring 60 points a game. And even versus, or Akron and Houston Christian, yeah. And then even versus Michigan, I mean, we scored 30 points. So he's going to have to kick off a decent amount. I don't know how that affects a kicker's leg in the long run. And that's kind of what I'm more concerned about. I don't think it's like, oh my gosh, halfway through the season he's going to putter out and be terrible. I know kickers that will kick both field goals and do kickoffs and then sometimes even punt. But I would like the guy to specialize, especially because we have 2 other kickers on the roster and they can't figure out kickoffs. That's a concern. Like, we have to get something figured out here. So that's part of where the resiliency in special teams comes. And then I talked about this a little bit earlier, but Jacory has got to get a big punt return this game. Preferably a punt return for a touchdown, but let's get something over 39 yards. Let's get a 50-yard return. Let's get a 60-yard return. Something like that. Let's start getting those chunk yards more when it comes to punt returns so we can build that confidence. If we get a touchdown return, hey, I'm here for it. Like, let's keep doing it. Let's make them scared to punt it to us. Right now, they're not scared. They're like, okay, yeah, like, he's broken a couple off for some decent yards, but he hasn't beaten anybody on it. So they're going to keep doing it until that happens. So let's do it. Well, that was the preview. Let's go to the moment that we have all been waiting for. My prediction. So my prediction for today's game, I'm going to talk about more of the details before I give you the actual score. But I believe that Nebraska will remain fairly consistent during this game. With that, I hope we have more of a run game, but one thing that we have been is consistent. We haven't just like changed our whole philosophy during a game or all of a sudden went from calling these types of plays to calling way different plays that didn't make sense. But consistent in a good way, not consistent where we throw 12 screen passes a game when they don't work. Consistency is doing things that work and continuing to do them until they don't. And then consistency also entails when things aren't working, changing it up a little bit, but not saying something crazy like, we're actually going to put 2 linemen down instead of 4 or 3 because they don't do anything. I'm not saying that. But I do believe that both teams are going to have a little bit of a slow start. I just have a feeling that both teams are going to start slow. I think both drives are going to peter out. First off, not be 3 and outs, but I believe that they are going to peter out early. It's going to be 0-0 when both teams have already played. and then Nebraska's going to start picking up the pace. That's what I feel like. So Nebraska's going to pick up the pace, get on the board first. Michigan State follows with the field goal, so 7-3, like late first quarter, probably late first quarter. And then I think punches are going to be traded back and forth between the teams, but Nebraska's going to stay ahead the entire game. But Michigan State, please make it competitive. I mean, I would love to see a 60-0 win here, but it's probably not going to happen. I want to see a competitive football game that I'm actually interested in watching. And my score prediction for a competitive football game will be Nebraska 38, Michigan State 27. So we're going to take a 11-point victory here. I think also when I made this score prediction, I think it was like 11.5 for us to win. And I feel like every time that I just feel like we never get the over. Like we never go over what's said unless it's like Houston or Akron. Or Houston, I said Akron Christian. Houston, Christian, or Akron. This is a little different. I feel like we struggle with that. So that's why I picked that. Again, 38-27. Go Big Red. Hope you all have a good time watching the game. If you're going to the game, great. I will be there too. And yeah, go Big Red. Thank you for watching, and subscribe if you'd like to subscribe and watch more of our channel. Thank you.